Hi YouTube, welcome back to my garage. It's been a while since I've done one of these videos, mainly because it's been summer. It's now November. Autumn has just kind of crept up on me. So I've got a long list of jobs to do now, but during the summer the car was in one piece, so I didn't want to start any jobs for obvious reasons. Just wanted to enjoy driving it. So that's what this video now is all about. It's basically just my last drive of, what will be, 2022. It's a lovely, oh, it was, it's not now it's night time, but it was on Sunday, a lovely autumnal day here in the UK. Beautiful colours. It was dry as well, importantly, which it rarely is this time of year. So I've gone out for about an hour's drive. I've edited it down into kind of half an hour of just kind of wafting about and chatting about Jags, really. So hopefully you'll enjoy that, and then come and join me for my next video, which will be introducing all the stuff I'm going to do over winter. Right, let's go for a drive. So one thing you'll notice about this car compared to some is that slightly beefier exhaust sound. I'm not 100% sure whether I like it or not. Basically, I've got the AJ6 Engineering TT twin extractor torque type exhaust. I'm not quite sure. I can't remember exactly what it was called or what it does. Don't you spray my car as I go past. You're very annoyed. But yes, as part of that system, I deleted the mid silencers, which gives you that slightly, I would say, throatier sound. At certain revs it's a little bit raspy as well. There's certainly some sound tuning could be done, which I may do in the future. On the other hand, when you open it up, yeah, just cut right across the junction. On the other hand, when I open it up, it does sound a bit more like a V12 should, instead of how Jaguar envisaged this car, which was literally just silent. So we're up to temperature already. It's one thing with the Jaguar XJS, I don't know if it's the same on all Jags of that time. They had a cold start, well, like a quick warm-up system. It basically advances the timing slightly while the car's warming up, and then once the car's up to temperature, it resets itself. I'm not entirely sure on the science and stuff that goes on, but it means the Jag warms up quickly up to operating temperature, probably faster than it would. Some people delete it all because it does get rid of some gubbins under the bonnet, but mine seems to be working fine. Let's go down this way actually. So I don't know if you can hear that just there. Around about, what we're at, about 1600 RPM, the exhaust just lets out a little bit of a arty growl, which isn't ideal. Like I said, that's to do with it just needs a little bit of tweaking. But I've got enough projects this winter. I'm not going to faff about with the exhaust this year. That's something for way off in the future. I will never forget when I bought my first XJS. So my Jaguar story, I may as well tell you while we're out pootling about the Cheshire countryside. I used to buy cars for anywhere down to £100 back in the sort of early 2000s.
back when you could buy an old banger, you know, a Nova or an Astra or something like that with a year's MOT on it, questionable MOT, and maybe even some tax, because back then cars came with the road tax that they were sold with. And yeah, I'd go pick up a car for 100, 200 quid, rag it about until it died, which was great, because in my early years of driving I probably had about 50, 60 cars, so I got to experience loads of those cars that now, some of them are classics now. You like your Novas, Astras. I had a Citroen BX, Volvo 480 with the pop-up lights, had 2 of those. But one day I went to my favourite garage with about £300 in my pocket, needed a car, and the guy there said, well, yeah, we had a look out the back. He had a Nova parked up, year's MOT. I was like, oh. I'd never actually had a Nova up until that point, so I was quite tempted. And then next to it was a Jaguar XJS, so the XJ40 model, British racing green, twin headlights, all leather interior. You know, one of the well-spec'd ones. It was only a 3.2, but it was, I mean, for someone who'd never driven anything over kind of a 1.2, seeing a car like that, 3.2 litre Jaguar, I couldn't help myself. I took it for a test drive. Never driven an automatic before either, and I just wafted around the countryside on this test drive. The smell, that's the one thing I really remember about that drive, was the smell of the wood and the leather. I'd never smelt a car like that before, and the way it just glided it over the road. I really need to edit that sentence. Glided it over the road. But yeah, it was just a whole different experience to what I'd ever driven, and so I bought it. And for a year, I had a Jaguar XJS. I say a year because when it came for the next MOT, turned out you can't really buy, even back then, an XJ40 for 300 quid with a year's MOT and expect it to be okay. It was just destroyed underneath. It looked great, but underneath was just destroyed. And back then I had no mechanical knowledge at all, so it had to go. And I replaced that with a Mark II Astra, I think. Bit of a down step. I really can't talk this morning, but you know what I mean. Anyway, that got me hooked on Jaguars. I started, you know, looking at Jaguar magazines and other cars and bits and bobs. I mean, this is kind of before the days of mindlessly scrolling the internet, so it will have been old magazines and stuff. And through that, I stumbled across the XJS, and not just the XJS, but the XJS facelift. I was aware of the XJS. There used to be one parked in my hometown, and that will have been one of the original ones. But I remember thinking how awesome it looked, because it was one of the TWR, I assume it was original TWR body kit ones. It may have just had the body kit fitted aftermarket, but it was just sat packed outside someone's house. And compared to all the other cars in those sort of days, it's yeah, it was just so low and long and just looked amazing. But I remember I never really liked the pre-facelift models. I didn't really like the back end. It just didn't quite work for me, and especially the old style bumpers. But I stumbled on a magazine one day with a picture of a facelift model, and I don't know, I just thought that looks amazing. And it came with obviously it comes with a 4-litre engine and a 6-litre V12. I didn't know about the V12s then, but it started me sort of looking into the 4-litre XJS facelift. Browsing one day through Auto Trader, found one that I could afford down in Peterborough. I mean, I lived in Barnard Castle at the time, so I put £4 in my pocket, got on a train or two, went down to Peterborough and got out on this little station. It wasn't even Peterborough, it was some little village outside Peterborough. Stood there with £4 in my pocket in the station car park, and then the guy I was planning to meet turned up in this Kingfisher Blue 1993 XJS 4 litre, and I remember I'd never seen one in person, and as it sort of pulled up in front of me, I just remember seeing how low and sleek and just amazing it looked, and thinking, I'm just going to buy this. I'd already decided, even if it was a bag of shite, I was going to buy it, just because I'm massively impulsive about cars. If I want it and I've got the money, I'll just buy it. So I did take it for a test drive. It needed wheels balancing and a few bits and bobs, but it was actually, fortunately, generally okay. And so I bought it and just drove it all the way back from Peterborough to Barnard Castle. And that was my daily driver for about 5 years, actually. At the age of 26, I was quite well known around the area for being that knob who wafted around or raced about, to be honest, because I was still a boy racer then, in this 4 litre Jaguar XJS. And then when I moved to Manchester a while ago, I had to sell it, and that was the end of my Jaguar ownership for a while. But I always kept my eye out, and I always wanted, because by then I was aware of the 6 litre V12, and for me that was just top trumps, apart from going for a 7 litre Lister or something, which I'd never be able to afford. I always kept my eye out for a decent 6 litre V12 XJS. And one day this one popped up on Auto Trader in Birmingham. It was listed at £6,000, which was a little bit cheaper than they were going for then. So I phoned the guy up, and he said, to be honest mate, I've taken it in part exchange, I know nothing about it, I'm sick. And I can sympathise with him. I'm sick of Jaguar nuts ringing me up and going, oh, is it this, has it got that, has it got the extra torque converter, what, you know, lots of technical questions. He said, I don't know anything about it, do you know what, if you want it, you can have it for £5,000. So I got on my motorbike on a wet November evening and shot down to Birmingham, test drove it in the dark, in the rain, which is just everything you're not supposed to do. But again, me being impulsive, kind of decided it was pretty much all there. It was a hell of a mess inside. There was bits missing, like the gear stick lever bit here wasn't missing. It was missing, no radio. It needed a really good clean up, but it drove okay and seemed alright, so I bought it. And then I've basically spent the last 10-12 years with it, learning how to do basic mechanics, and now, to be honest, in the last couple of years, slightly more advanced mechanics, working down at Andy's part-time and working on this. So obviously I've had both the front and rear subframes off, completely stripped down, new bearings in the diff, you know, things like that that would have terrified me 2 or 3 years ago. But now that I've got a little bit more, I'm just going to go. Yeah, now I've got a little bit more experience. It still terrifies me, but I have learned that taking apart cars, as long as you're careful and you document everything, it's basically a massive Lego kit. And you just renew everything, replace things that need replacing, and put them back together. It's one thing I must fix on this car one day. It's just a gentle wind noise over there. There should be no wind noise in an XJS. They were very well designed from that point of view. Unless I'm wrong, please comment in the comments section of this video if you've got an XJS facelift and you get a bit of wind noise. I've had a really good look at the door seal. The windscreen I know is sound because that was out the other year and put back in properly. All the chrome's absolutely correct, but you just get this gentle wind noise over there at speed. But picky. So one thing people who haven't driven an XJS might not know about is this switch down here, the sport normal switch. All it does is change the point at which the gearbox changes gear. So in normal it will be set up for smooth driving. In sport it's set up for sporty driving, or spirited, some people call it. In the 4 litre model it also has an extra function for stopping the car going into first gear. The reason for that is it gives much smoother set off from stops, or in snow or slippery conditions. Again, it stops the rear wheels from just spinning up when you're trying to pull away. You don't need that on a V12 because the gearbox automatically set up when it's in normal. It'll always pull away in second. It only pulls away from a standing starting first if you've stopped and pressed that sport switch into sport. The other advantage of the sport switch, obviously, if I need to overtake, if I'm doing sort of 45-50 miles an hour, I can knock it into sport, bury my foot. Now, that's a perfect example there of why I don't use the sport switch. Unless you really bury your foot in the footwell and hit it perfectly, it might not knock it down to the gear that you want. So there, it just went down 1 gear. To be honest, I kind of needed it to go down 2. So the other way to overtake is to use this manual override. So there, I've gone down 1 gear. I could probably overtake there, but what I can do is knock it down another gear, and now I've got full power until I change gear. And I find that a much more effective way of driving this car at speed. I mean, most of the time I'm just cruising about like we are now. But if I really need that power of the 6 litre V12 up front, you can very smoothly, manually select what gear you want. There's one thing you'll notice if you haven't driven an XJS before and you get in, is this tiny, it seems quite large, but it's quite a tiny windscreen. And even a short guy like me, you put the sun visor down and I've literally got that much view. It's nice though. It's a special cabin to be in, even though it's this enormous, well, it's not an enormous car by modern standards, but it looks like quite an enormous car. A huge bonnet and boot. You sit in here and it's just this luxurious little cabin. It does feel special. Welcome to Wilmslow. I do think the Jaguar fits in very well here, although to be honest it doesn't. Everyone's got those massive Bentley SUVs these days. They're just hideous. I hate this modern obsession with SUVs. I know I'm not going to change that. People keep buying them, so they keep making them. Which way are you going? Are you going that way? Yes. But yeah, they just look silly though, especially the Bentley and the Rolls-Royce ones. I mean, I'm not a great fan of the Jaguar one, or any of them, but especially the Bentley and the Rolls-Royce. You know, a Bentley or a Rolls-Royce should be this svelte, low-slung kind of barge with nice proportions, and you just can't get that in an SUV. There's no getting away from the fact that an SUV is essentially a van with windows. You can do as much styling as you like, but it's still going to look like a Ford Transit with a Bentley badge on it, in my opinion. See around a corner, don't overtake a cyclist before the corner. It's not rocket science, is it? Like here, for example, I can't see round that corner. Oh look, there's a big SUV coming, so I didn't overtake. It's quite simple. People are just idiots. Who am I indicating to? There's no one here. That's a pointless indication. Oh, Jesus Christ. There is no avoiding them today, is there? Let's see how we've been doing on this trip. Because I have a battery isolator when it's parked up, all the data on here will be just from this trip. So we can see we've been out for, well, it's been 55 minutes since I connected the battery. We've done an average speed of 30 miles an hour. We've covered 28.4 miles. And the interesting one, our average mile to the gallon, which I do not care about. Everyone always, first thing when you say to people, oh, we got a 6-litre V12 Jaguar XJS, oh, the miles per gallon must be, I don't care. Last thing I bought this car for was good fuel economy. And actually 15.5, it's not bad for this car. If you drive like a proper knob, you can get it down into single figures. I mean, when I was flooring it back there, you've got an instant readout here. It says I'm doing 10 at the minute. You will see when you floor it, it goes down to 1. Obviously only while you're actually giving it the full beans, but yeah, it's a thirsty car. But the average of 15.4, that's pretty good. I'll leave it on instant, you can maybe see that, I don't know, 13, 14 while we're cruising around town. 26, you see. I let off the accelerator. 63, does 63 miles to the gallon for a second. It's a fun game. Tell you what, once we get past this roundabout, I'm going to make that say 1. We'll just knock it back. And again. Oh, 2. I only managed 2. Didn't quite manage to get it down to 1. This into sport now when I stop and I set off, it will go from first, and you actually can hear it more than you feel it, because you hear the torque converter. There you go, that's first, straight into second because I didn't floor it. So because we're in sport, changing gear around about 4,500 RPM, so not quite as much as if I held it in gear, but still it's pretty lively. And like I said, what I prefer is knock it down a gear and I can now hold that all the way. Okay, that's 4.5. Way too fast. Anyway, neutral there. And it's not a slouch, this car. And I had another 1,500 RPM to go there, and that was only in third. You know, we've got a whole other gear after that, so it really will move. It's not fast, particularly accelerating, but it will just keep accelerating.
All right, that's it. Thanks for joining me on that drive around Cheshire. See you in the next video, which hopefully won't be too long, because I want to get started now on all the winter works. We'll get the car jacked up and set up with its exhaust extraction system. That'll be interesting to see. Get the bonnet off and start swapping radiators and fixing oil leaks and many other things that I want to do on the car this winter. So see you then.